So we're coming back to the pattern, and then we're going to see the phase. We see the phase of the moon. We saw that coming in. It's just past the waning half moon, just in the way, and it's just coming back towards the new moon. Okay, but when we look at his moon is conjunct Pluto. That's an intense aspect. That's a very strongly controlling aspect, controlling his feelings. And there's controlling of feelings, and there's strong, powerful fears about security and powerful need to fight for security or to control things for security, to be secure, to have the things he wants. And to have not only have the things, have the security he wants, and have it's in the third house, be listened to have the insight that to be appreciated for his insight. But there certainly is complexes and phobias here, because having to face fears and the fear of not having something, of not getting what one wants, of not being able to have those things, would be a very strong factor with his moon, of not having enough money, of not having security, of not being appreciated, of not being listened to. These would all be very powerful things. It has a strong nerve. Like the Pluto forces him to have to assess these things. That he has there is the fear of security, the Pluto moon, and therefore the need to control my feelings and to control it. At the same time, that can create a great depth, but can also create great blocks or struggles with anyone trying to get close to him. Because he could control, but with the moon Pluto, it's very unlikely that he could surrender, to let go of the control, to let go of his defenses, let go of his sense of security, his need for security. I think this is a key point, because with Freud, Freud didn't accept his working with the occult and was thinking he was off track, and he was more and more threatened by that, or challenged by when he didn't get what he wanted. Boy, that Pluto moon, when he didn't get what he wanted or wasn't being listened to or appreciated, that Pluto moon has a harshness or has a ferocity or a fear that comes into it, but not a surrendering thing. It's a confrontational. So, but it is deep in his chart. So to be able to express motives, express things, to express himself, there's a need to express deep things. It's one of the factors that pulls him into his psychology, into the depth analysis of what's secure and what's not, what makes someone secure or doesn't. Okay, now, so the moon Pluto, it's, even though it's 8 degrees, it's still within 10 degree orbit. We usually allow for the moon, but that's significantly there. And then the moon also squares Uranus and squares Saturn. So the moon square Uranus is the anxiety, is the neurotic anxiety, always worrying, always hyper, very insecure side. So he has this great insecurity from Uranus, 7th house around relationships, very insecurity about relationships, great instability about relationships, but not an ability to surrender to them. There's a tendency to over-control or overcompensate, not surrender. But there's an instability, insecurity, and a fear of the insecurity, and a need to control it no matter what. This is really a primal part of him. Then you have the moon square Saturn, which is the kind of depression about the past and the family, and the seriousness about mom and dad and passed away. And there's the inhibition, there's an inhibited side of this moon too. So part of him gets serious and worried, doesn't want to express himself, but has the restrictions on feelings, the difficult memories, and then there's the fear of the anxieties and the shocks, the insecurity, and the moon Pluto fear. And I think some of this was tied up because mom was very psychic or mystical, or they would say a little bananas or whatever, but psychic, I think, would be, or impressionable to other states. He was very threatened by this vulnerability and felt he had to hold something together, put together, understand things really strongly to be able to counter that. Okay, now, So his ability to his need to have to relate to his mom would translate with the biggest difficulty to start with, and he would be able to talk to other women with their difficulties, or other people, but especially other women with their difficulties, because he grew up with that. Especially if they were unhinged or insecure or depressed, he could walk into that and talk about it. Okay, and so his ability to talk deeply and walk into fears and anxieties was really profound. But it's there because he has it profoundly in his personal chart. His home life was always controlled and insecure and radical and not secure. So these will play out in his relationships, to his marriage. He got his degree, married a really wealthy lady, and one of the richest. To secure what he was marrying a richest person in Switzerland, he would always have the money to go where he wanted to go, or teach or write or do the things. He could always do that. So he married his support. Okay, so, and it was very practical, controlling concern. Let's just see. Okay, then we look at the Mercury and the Venus. They're together. The Mercury in the 6th house, they express the sensitivity, the responding. It's your house of responding to others and taking things personally and impression. So his Venus is need to get positive feedback. His being liked or not liked was a really powerful and personal factor. His being listened to or not being listened to, or being appreciated for his ideas. This is the Mercury and Venus, and it's ruled by the Moon. It's in Cancer in the 6th house. So he has, in one way, you would say he would have his. It's tend to be the house of illness or sickness, but it's also the house of healing. So he would have. You could see the worries that would be fed by his Moon. I need to have this. I need to have some sort of work. I need to have security where I work, and need to be appreciated for my ideas. So this is both being appreciated and being listened to, and being really, it's not projecting out his ideas, it's listening. Certainly his ability to listen and appreciate the ideas of others and be sensitive to them and be able to react in a personal way to them. So he could easily talk about other people's fears of security or fears of life, because they're not going to be much stronger than they're going to be. He has them too. So once he dealt with his to some degree, he could work with others. The Mercury is, okay, I don't want to go into the 135 degrees. There's not really any bad aspects to the Mercury. Okay, it sits by itself. So his mind and his ability to, so even his book, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, the Moon, it was really the Mercury, memories, dreams, and reflections going into the past and bringing up these deep experiences. Not necessarily always positive, or how he would react to them, but his Venus conjunct it. I mean, Venus, what we want usually seduces how we think. So if I want something, I got to think like that. I got to have it. If I want something, I got to need to have that. So Venus, our desires, our lusts, our values, the things we want, tends to really overpower the Mercury. So Mercury is trying to think, and the Venus has a strong influence. So his ability to communicate with women, to express emotional factors, was very strong. But the Venus was squared by Jupiter. It has a stressful aspect, which doesn't really hit the Mercury, but because the Mercury is conjunct the Venus, and the Venus has a strong influence on the Mercury, it's still kind of in there. The ability to exaggerate or to have conflicts or stresses around understanding what I want, how I get it or how I don't get it, exaggerating, spending too much, wanting too much, thinking too much, talking too much, or perhaps even just getting the ability to understand where you get paid Venus for your understanding, for your talking, and be able to be talked. So the idea of being a therapist and being able to make money for talking about people's problems, it would fit for an astrologer too. But the Venus, the satisfaction, there's a tendency to with Venus to Jupiter to overindulge. Now, I don't think that he was ever a fat person. That's his Aquarius rising, but he was never really a fat person, probably too proud. But there's certainly a thing of tastes. He would want certain things or have certain tastes that would be, and his belief on what's social understanding, what you have to do with it, his sense of what's valuable, what's right or wrong, would be, there would be struggles in his life over what he valued and whether it was right or wrong. That would be there. So you can see that in the marrying for money and marrying to get established, and the repercussions that the Jupiter in the 8th house squaring the 6th house. Okay, you can see that. Okay, so I'm just touching some things. It's the emotional side of Jung that really helps to understand his behavior. There's a strong division between his personal emotional world and his sense, his identity, and his sense of status. Okay, so so his sun is in the 7th house of counseling, of partnerships, of relationships. It's just out of orb to, it's not in a conjunction to Uranus, but they're both there. So the need for independent or eccentric relationships or exciting relationships to reach for that different or to attract exciting people, that's a factor in his life. So his sun, it opposes his ascendant. So his ascendant's a serious Aquarius, the thinker, the knower. He wants respect. And with Saturn in the 1st house, he's going to see his identity is going to be somewhat serious. But the sun opposes that. He wants to be seen as glamorous, as the leader, as someone who knows, as someone you can lean to. He wants to be the advisor, the counselor. Everybody would turn to him to ask about their problems. And probably especially women, but the sun also squares at Jupiter, which implies struggles or fights with understanding. So it gave him his depth of understanding of constantly having to work with what's right. Sun, Venus, both squaring the Jupiter. They're not conjunct, but they're both squaring the Jupiter. So there's struggles with principles, understanding what's right, what's wrong. And he certainly had those struggles with his wife. He certainly had those struggles with Freud when he was studying them. But that struggle built up his own understanding, his own take on things, his own way of expressing himself and seeing things. That's the Moon, Pluto, 3rd house. So, but the sun, the main factor with the sun is this really exact aspect of the sun square Neptune in the 2nd house. So the sun squares Neptune and it opposes ascendant. So he's never who he thinks. He's not who you think he is. Like at that point, somewhat being the psychologist and getting his degree for psychology of the mental disorders was the lowest form, and it was not really a good reputation. It was really the lowest level of medicine one would go to. But he got in, he got established, to make it work. He had to be established, he had to have the respect. He got his degree, he took care of the Aquarius and Saturn ascendant. He got his PhD, so he had to be respected. He got his respect level done. But the sun square Neptune, this causes a lot of confusions in one life. The Jupiter square Neptune causes struggles with understanding what's right and wrong, but Neptune also has fears with fantasies, with visions, with, you could say, mystical things. There's an evasiveness. There's an ability for him to be different for different people. Even though he's the Leo, he can have different sides. It's hard for him to be exactly reliable. So for all his fixed signs, this Neptune to the sun is a complicated thing. He'd be deeply affected by guilt. He wouldn't want to be related to us if he was wrong or he was guilty.